that roar when you ran out just puts goosebumps on the back of your neck.
Walsh went straight through, Andrews there!
He's just forever looking for an opportunity.
Exhilarating football!
That's a good sign of a good team.
Accelerates and punches through them!
And he's only going to get better.
And the hammer stands them up! And Queensland going to do it again!
Well, hello and welcome to our season review here on Queenslander, brought to you by Tab. And if you can click on the website link below, you can go in the draw to win a VIP Melbourne Cup Experience this November. Boys, that's something I've always wanted to go to. Melbourne Cup, Flemington, first Tuesday in November. Have you guys been at Melbourne Cup?
Yeah, been to the Melbourne Cup a couple of times. Certainly an exciting experience. The entertainment value of the crowd is just as attractive. Huge crowds get there, and you can see the condition that most of the people are in by the time the Melbourne Cup has taken place. But the atmosphere when the race gets underway is something quite extraordinary. It's worth the trip.
Yeah, I've been to a couple. It's a fun time of year, and it is, the atmosphere is amazing down there. So,
You're back a winner? Can you remember?
I remember in '98 when after we won the premiership, we went there for a trip away.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Alf was obviously leading the charge, and we backed Bossy and Jezebel. I think.
Oh yeah.
Was
it just won?
I think. Oh no, we came second. We hit the front. We thought we won, jumping up and down like lunatics, but we got beaten just by. I can't remember whether Jezebel was second or Jezebel won. Anyway, it might have been we were on Champagne.
Oh yeah, Champagne was run down by Jezebel. Yeah, right at the end. Yeah.
So that was a great memory.
Yeah, remarkable races. I mean, there's people we were in company of had no interest in horse racing, but it was Melbourne Cup Day. So they had to be there and certainly enjoyed the running of the race. And, you know, that famous old saying, the race that stops the nation gets proven every time that Melbourne Cup comes around. It's a fantastic opportunity, I think, and it's a real appreciation of the work, the intense work that the trainers get through. That is something quite remarkable, and to come up with those horses, even if they're from across the ditch, Kiwi horses winning the Cup with almost monotonous regularity. They're still wonderful races that make everything exciting for the day.
And speaking of horses, let's continue with the Broncos. Like that transition there, they're out to pasture this year after missing out on the finals, but it looks as though Reece Walsh has agreed in principle. The contract's not official yet, re-signing for another 4 years, $5 million, so it works out to be about $1.2 million a year. Good value, Lockie?
Oh, look, I think Reece, like a lot of the Broncos players, would have loved a bit more consistency this year. So I think that's the key for Reece. We've seen what he can do and how much attacking flair he brings to the Broncos. For him now, it's obviously a very big deal, which comes with responsibility. And I think consistency is what most fans of the Broncos and people involved in the club we want to see from Reece, and as he matures and grows, I think we'll get that.
Yeah. It was hard to really gauge his season because he had a couple of injuries. He had that facial fracture at the start of the year and then that back concussion at State of Origin. So it was really hard to see exactly where he was at this year.
Yeah, and I know that whenever you go through one of those seasons and it's almost ruined by injury along the way, you do feel extra responsibility the next time you're coming around to play for the club. You figure that you didn't get to play all of the games. Sometimes you're missing 8, 10 of them, and you feel like that you really need to give back to the club that showed great faith in you. And it's a real challenge, but it's one that I think can inspire you to an all-time high.
And with a player like Reece, how valuable is that marketing aspect is too? Because he sells his club by himself.
There's no doubt. Social media. He's got. He's brought a whole new dimension of people following the game and the Broncos, which obviously means more merchandise sales. So, obviously the important part is the results on the field, but there's an element that he brings to the business of the Broncos, and it's again for Reece, it's how he manages that popularity.
Yeah, and having a little bit of extra pressure on him, more often than not, can prove to be the inspirational point for the player. We all love having that extra pressure on you, especially in the big games. You know you've got to put up or shut up, and they're the ones that really make you feel quite comfortable. Should you have one of your best games and replay the club for the responsibility and the faith that they showed you.
And with Reece Walsh now locked up long term, what becomes the Broncos' next focus for the future? Because a lot of other members, long-term deals, Carrigan, Payne Haas, Ezra Mann. Do you look at extending Blake Moser to get more continuity in the spine, or the halfback after Adam Reynolds? Where does the focus go now? Because it's a continual process.
It is, and I think you've always got to have one eye on that spine because they're so important to... we talk about consistency. If you've got continuity in your spine, you'll get consistency with your performances. So, Reece done, Ezra. And then look, Adam's got another year. So there becomes a bit of focus on who will be the 7 after Adam, and then who will be the 9 after Billy. So it's I think given the enormity of Reece's deal and Ezra and Payne, it's not you're limited to how much money you've got out there for your 7 and your 9 now.
Yep.
But we just have to see who's out there and who we can develop.
You need to find another Shane Perry to play for unders and make you look good.
Oh, look, I think a young 7 coming through who's not going to demand the big money straight away is probably where it's heading. But as we know, the number 7's so important, and we've got to keep one eye on. Who's earmarked to go there beyond Adam Reynolds and who's there to go beyond Billy Walters.
And time for the talent scouts to work in overdrive. Now get out there and have a look at the exciting young talent that's waiting to attract a key club, and if we have the opportunity like that, certainly it will make our life a lot more comfortable for Reece. There's never going to be a one-man offering from the club. We've seen some great football from him. Let's just hope that there's plenty of others that can provide that assistance.
Braden Trindle's the guy who's off contract next season at the Sharks. Would he potentially be a guy, or would he be someone who you'd have to pay too much money for, like you were saying before? Potentially.
He's finished the year strong. I'd be surprised if the Sharks let him go.
Yeah, based on what he did in that final.
Yeah. But again, I think the Bronx are pretty keen to try and develop within.
Yeah.
So we'll just see where that lands.
And having players like Walsh, Mam, Haas, Carrigan, do you think, that could even attract another player from an opposition club to go, hey, the Broncos are on the rise, maybe this is the time to jump ship? Yeah,
when you've got key players that are on show, it certainly does make it attractive for players to make a switch, to come over and test their strengths. Of course, it's got a wonderful name, the Broncos club. Had a rich history, so I think it wouldn't take all that much, but certainly the success of the club and the way that they're offering assistance to other players, to key players, I think could be a real benefit for them.
And speaking of player movement, Regan Campbell-Gillard's from the Eels, seemingly linked to every club at the moment, but at the moment more noise around the Gold Coast Titans. Could that forward rotation work with Mo, Tino and RCG?
Well, it could definitely work. It just depends on what the Coast have to pay for him.
Yeah.
I think, I think the issue here is he's on a big deal at Parramatta.
Yep.
So they're trying to create more space in their cap. So whoever takes Regan will have to put some money in to get his services, but to have 2-3 State of Origin front rowers at your club, that's really hard to afford. So
the cash register starts to ring, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, again, unless they get Regan really cheap, and I'm assuming that might be one of the sticking points with a lot of the clubs. They're having to pay too much, given their current salary cap situation, then becomes too hard.
And I think that's one of the problems the Titans have with their salary cap at the moment, because you've got Mo and Tino, obviously on big money, and David Fifita. Yeah. So much of their salary cap is tied up in their forward pack at the moment. So you probably don't want to go down that path.
Again, unless Desi got him for a bargain, I just don't know whether he'd be able to afford him.
Now, on the Titans too, Keanu Kinney, who was excellent this year, he's player's player. That creates that dilemma. Like, we continually talk about this for years, seemingly, with Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson. Now you've added Kinney into that mix. Just what do you do there?
Well, try and make the most out of the services that you've got. He seems to have some wonderful skill. Promised to do so much in plenty of games and delivered on many occasions. What do? Well, you just hope that the opportunity to have him on board is going to attract other guys as well. And I guess the answer to the question, what do? Well, you make the most of the talent that you've got. Yeah. Never let it be wasted. You're going to have the chance to be able to use him where you can.
Yeah. We've been talking about this conundrum for years with the Titans.
Yeah.
Putting 5 into 4.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know how long Kieran Foran's got to go, but he's obviously brings a lot of leadership to the team. But I think there's been a few these smaller fullbacks. Their work rate and their ability to inspire their team with their hit, like the way they
Trey Fuller, the
Dolphins,
Kinney,
Kinney. I think they're invaluable. So I think he probably stays at 1. And Jaden Campbell, you keep.
He was better at 6 than I thought he was going to be.
And I still don't think he was 100% fit.
Yeah.
He's still strapping the knee. So I think he's going to get better with a pre-season under his belt.
Yeah.
He got knocked around a couple of times, Kinney, but I was very, very happy to see him continue on. And I think he's got a pretty handy future in front of him. Seems to have plenty of skills, virtually all the skills that are required to make it in the big time. And he has quite a future in front of him.
Yeah, it seems 2025 will be a career-defining year for AJ Brimson. We haven't really seen the best of him lately because he's been plagued by injury. So if he can have an injury-free year, that's the key.
Yeah, well, I've said it a couple of times, a bit left field, but was Sam Verrill still there next year? Is he going?
At this stage, there's talk that the Roosters might want him back.
AJ probably hates me saying this, but I reckon he'd make a good hooker.
Yeah, fast out of dummy half.
Fast out of dummy half, like a Damien Cook.
Yeah.
He's in his prime, so he probably doesn't want to go defend in the middle, AJ, but I actually think he's a footballer, and his speed off the mark out of hooker would be very dangerous.
Yeah, I think he might surprise himself too, Lockie, how comfortably and easily that he'd adapt to the change. And even though it's in there in the big shed, he's quite capable of achieving everything.
So he could be spending some time in Desi's dojo down there on the Gold Coast over the next few months.
Cringing, but I see there's potential there.
What about Jason Taumalolo? He had a pretty impressive end to the season with that Cowboys charge. What did you make of his resurgence, Lockie?
Yeah, I think they've worked out the best way to manage him. There's been talk about this arthritic knee that's given him the challenge of not being able to do all the training. Yeah. So that's probably, disadvantaged him with his fitness. But they got his stints right at the back end of the year. They weren't long stints, but his second one has always been his best one. And when they got to the end there, so I think they found the right balance about when to use him and how to use him. And again, Jason signed a significant deal a long time ago and still got a few years to run. So. If you can maximise his output with, what they're doing now, then that's a good outcome.
Well, I think I whinged every week to you, Adam, when we were talking about the Cowboys and what was going wrong on the occasions when they weren't being successful. But Taumalolo is one of those blokes that is quite capable of continuing a powerful running game. A wonderful player. Disappointment to see him not spend all that much time on the field this year, but perhaps that was dominated by some of the injuries that he was carrying. But fitting him into the Cowboys is something that's got to be done. I think he inspires those around him really well. The opportunity to be able to do so is in front of him, and I think he's got a year or two left. Two might be getting towards the end, but having watched some of the things he's been capable of doing over the term of his contract in the North has been quite stunning.
I think he'd be optimistic the way he finished the season for himself going into a pre-season, and I think for Todd Payten he'd be optimistic about how he can use him next year.
It was interesting. We interviewed him for 9 years after that Sharks final, and I said, "Have you still got a few years left in him?" And he goes, I'll see how I go." Like, he's a man of few words, so interesting to see how that pans out for Taumalolo. Bear in mind too, he had a fractured cheekbone too, so he has to have surgery in the off-season. So imagine being a front rower playing with that in a finals game. Like you had that during your career, Lockie. That's obviously playing in his mind. So it's a brave effort to continue playing that back end of the season.
It was a big call to shift him into positions. I mean, he looked like he bulked up a considerable amount to be playing up front, where we like to remember when he was at his best playing at lock forward, where he just had such ability to be able to cart the ball around and target opposition defensive players that found it almost impossible to stop him. So I guess the ageing process insists that there needs to be that change of position, but he's one of those guys, I think, that really can inspire those around him and make life a lot easier.
And probably too, with Reuben Cotter playing such lengthy minutes, you can get away with Taumalolo in a shorter burst. But with the Cowboys bowing out in that second week of the finals, Lockie, losing a lot of talent in the off-season. So Val Holmes going to the Dragons, Felty's going to English Super League, Townsend's going back to Sydney at the Roosters, Fini Fuiaki's going to the Dolphins. Is that premiership window still open?
Look, I think Val Holmes and Cole Felt, there's a lot of points in these two players. So I think that'll be the challenge for the Cowboys next year. Yes, they've got some players like Drinkwater that can create things, but I felt they got their season back on track later in the year when they got their defence right, because the points were coming. But my biggest concern for them next year is will they have enough points in them?
And I think they certainly do need leadership. Certainly at a level to continue snowball almost to make life so much easier for those that are going around. I think we're going to be seeing some of the new faces coming into the Cowboys over the next year or two, and it's certainly going to be a little bit of a long, hard haul for them.
Yeah, Jackson Purdue's one to watch. We saw him a couple of times at the Roosters. He was excellent in that win for them. Scott Drinkwater copped a bit of criticism too in the finals for probably his lack of involvement. I remember Blocker Roach saying he thinks he's the type of player who looks $1 million when things are going well for the team, but doesn't do the little stuff enough, like support play when things are going against them. Is that criticism warranted?
Look, yes. Drinky hasn't played Origin, has he? I don't think.
No, he's been in the squad, but he's never played,
So I think what Blocker's describing there is that sort of Origin mentality where things are against you. You got to really work hard and fight through that adversity. So I think it's something that Scott could probably use as constructive criticism. Like I think maybe he does have to have a mindset where if they're behind on the scoreboard or it's the game's in a real arm wrestle, that he's got a role to play, and it not necessarily doesn't mean he needs to throw a cutout ball or take a risk. It's playing the long game when the chips are down. Yeah,
and you mentioned the magic word too, Lockie, consistency, and being able to do that each and every week. The Cowboys were looking good when he was firing. They were going ahead in leaps and bounds, and then it just seemed to slow down a little bit. And I don't mean to say that it's the job is his and his only, but certainly the way that he was able to do that throughout the business end of the season was interrupted quite consistently.
Yeah, and he has that jokey personality too, so sometimes it can be a bit of a misconception of like how hard he's trying, because he's the kind of player, if he makes a mistake, he just brushes it off.
Yeah. Look, I think I'd use it as constructive criticism. Try and use it to improve your game, evolve your game, and just I think sometimes when the chips are down, you got to find ways to stay in the game as an individual, but also your team.
Yeah, and when he led the way, he looked really good. He looked inspirational to all of those that were around him on the field, and certainly did so for all of the feans. It was great to watch.
He almost scored that runaway try too.
Yeah.
He was just ankle tapped right on the edge, on the sideline. But looking at the Cowboys sheds at the end of the game, it's almost a good thing that they're not playing this week, because they would have struggled to field a team like Val Holmes with that suspected broken leg. Felty did his calf. Nene, something's clearly wrong with him. He was the shadow of his former self. Fini Fuiaki's got a broken thumb. Jason Taumalolo's got that cheekbone. Murray Taulagi did his hamstring. So, in a way, it's probably a good thing their season ended there.
Yeah.
Look at the 4 teams that are left.
Yeah.
Top 4.
Yeah.
It just... Yeah,
it's a war of
when
attrition.
you come from that bottom 4, it's hard.
Yeah. The injury to Val Holmes was...
Yeah.
It's just you had trouble believing it, thinking he's walked under a dozen ladders.
Yeah.
Building up for the game. Poor bloke. Anyway, injuries occur to all teams, but the Cowboys, they certainly seem to have more than their fair share.
You made a good point too with the point scoring. It'd be weird not seeing Val Holmes' goal kick for the Cowboys, because it's just been 6 points, 6 points, 6 points.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate Cole Felt.
Yeah.
Like he can turn a half chance into points.
Yeah, I won't be underestimated. Definitely not. And congratulations too, speaking of finals, to the North Devils winning their 3rd premiership in the space of 4 years in the Queensland Cup competition. A lot of Dolphins contracted players there. And Tessie New was player of the final.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Oh, you were there at Redcliffe.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I went and watched it and really was inspired. There were a lot of the players there, and there was a bit of atmosphere at the place as well. They do not like each other, those two, and it really made it an encouraging game to watch.
And Ben Teo, the coach of Redcliffe Dolphins, who finished runner-up, did an excellent job. I think he'll be the best recruit for the Broncos next season. That steely resolve he'll add to the forwards, and being a recently retired player as one of Kevy's assistants. So before we wrap it up, we've given you some homework with your report cards to grade all the Queensland team. What mark have you given them, and percentage chance to make the finals in 2025? Let's start with the Titans, who finished the season in 14th. What do you give the Titans, and what percentage of making the finals? I'm going to give them a D-, and I'm going to give them a 10% of making the finals next year, because they always seem to let us down.
Well, I'll give them a D. I think I'm giving them, like, if they get Tino back next year and some of their key players stay fit, they were new coach coming in. It takes a bit of time to get used to the new coach. So they lost that 6-game.
Yeah, at the start of the season.
And there are periods in the middle of the season there where they were really on the up, and they faded at the end. But I'll give them a D. I actually think probably 40%.
Yeah, okay.
Of making the finals next year. I think with another pre-season under Des. Who else said that? Who would they, if they get Tino back, and what's
AJ Brimson was out for a big chunk of this season that's just passed as well. Yeah.
In that position, it's tough. 14th. I went for a C.
You're too generous, Walt.
Yeah, well, it probably sounds that way. I quite admired quite a few of their games that they played, and felt that they just either hadn't got used to Dez's guidance, or they just were having too many injuries. They did come up with quite a few injuries throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
And I do agree with Lockie about the value of Tino on the field. The inspiration that he provides for others certainly needs to be there each and every week.
Yep.
It really does. He will inspire other players, and he will also make it very tough for the opposition. He's a wonderfully talented player.
They did beat the Broncos twice this season in both of those derbies, so that's the big positive takeaway for the Titans for next season. What about the Dolphins? Just missed out on qualifying for the finals, went down to the last few minutes of the last game against Newcastle. Unfortunately for them, the Knights sealed it. I'm going to give the Dolphins a B- because I think they've exceeded expectations. The 2 years they've been in the competition, and I'm going to say 50% chance they do it next year with Bennett not being there.
I went a C+.
Yep.
Because I think they had themselves in a really good position to play finals, but they faded.
Yeah.
So I would have given them a B, probably B plus if they made the finals, but they just failed. But another good year, given all their injuries. Gilbert,
Flagler.
So they had another strong season, but I felt like they had themselves in a position to play finals and they let it slip. And I'll give them a 40% chance of playing finals next year. It just, history shows, and this is nothing against Christian Wolf, it's just history shows it's hard to follow Wayne. And yeah, that's my sort of prediction.
Yeah, I went for a B. Probably plenty suggested, and that's a little bit too high considering. But they did fade away at interesting times throughout the year. They had injuries pretty much nearly every vital game that they were playing in, and just managed to fall a little bit short. Their key players that were out. As soon as we start talking about the big boys that do plenty of work for them, and I think that they didn't, or they weren't able to put the same team on the field week after week after week after week. The top teams managed to do that, and they do it with almost monotonous regularity. But they really did appear to go short. Desi, I think he'll help them out. The coach will help them out and do a pretty good job. I think it'll be a 50-50.
Do you think Tom Gilbert becomes the captain next year? Because they need a new captain. Jesse Bromwich has retired from the NRL. Is Gilbert the guy, or given he comes back from injury, you don't put that extra pressure on him? Because it's a hard one. Who else do you make captain?
Well, I think Gilbert stands for everything you want from a leadership perspective. Just works hard, good bloke. So he's probably, I can't sort of think of anyone else that would be in front of him. You got Marshall King playing at 9. I mean, Max Plath had an outstanding year, but
he was their player of the year.
He just started.
Felice Kafusi, maybe.
Oh, Kafusi, yeah, maybe Kafusi for a year or two while Gilbert
gets himself together again. Yeah,
that'd be the perfect way, Lockie. I agree there. For him to lead the way, and for Gilbert to, he's a pretty quiet bloke. Gilbert, I don't know whether it was just the places where I was, or the things that we got to see, but he really does appear to be a really quiet sort of guy. Flathy, I've got to say, gee, I admired his year. He's a gutsy kid. He just keeps going and going and going. Wonder where he got that from. It tends to run in the family, so hopefully there'll be good times ahead for them.
He won several awards at the Dolphins Award Night. I was there a few weeks ago at South Bank. He won his first award. They invited his parents. His mum was there. His mum missed the first award, and Max gets on the stage and said, "I think she's out having a vape. She's missed my first award." So, a couple of characters in that family.
No, well, you talk about...
Wonder where he got it.
Didn't John Plath have a cigarette at half time when you guys would play with him?
No, Plathy didn't mind a bunger and didn't mind a rum and coke too. City rowers, all hours in the morning. But then he'd come to training the next day and be leading the fitness. So there's something in their genes.
And just finally on the Dolphins, I think it almost bodes well in a way for Christian Wolf that they didn't make the finals this year. It lessens that expectation a bit. So next year, if they make the finals, he's almost seen as he breaks the Bennett curse.
Agree. I think if they had made the finals, there's obviously a lot more expectation and pressure on. And look, I know he's a quality coach. So it's just dealing with the following of Wayne, and because he's such a great man manager. If you don't get that right, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah, a lot of people suggest it's impossible to follow Wayne, but I think he'll go well.
I hope he does.
I don't know of a single person that doesn't like him. He's well respected by all of them, and he's played gone ahead through a substantial learning curve. So he's learned from the best, and I think he's going to have plenty of talent to work with as well. It'll be a good year.
I think it was
Good
Jack
fella.
Bostock who was joking the other day, the Dolphins were going to call him the big bad wolf ahead of their pre-season. So I don't think they're looking forward to some of the fitness drills that Wolfie will put them through out at Redcliffe. Continuing on the Cowboys, I'm going to give them a B. They got to the second week of the finals. But I'm still going to go 50-50 on their finals hopes for next year based on what we said earlier, Lockie, of they're losing so much talent.
I'm probably exactly where you are, mate, a B. They at one point in that season, I think it might have been the second part of the, just before Origin, they were up and down every week, and they salvaged it at the back end. They started to find their rhythm, and I think Jake Clifford was important to that. So, I think I'd give them a B, given the fact that they probably midway through the year it looked like they were going to miss the finals.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I think they lose some talent. They lose a lot of points in Holmes and Felt. But given that they've got some young kids coming through that have quality, if they don't have any injuries, I think they'll be a 50-50 shot playing finals again.
Like you guys, a B. Could almost be a B- at some time through the year where they had some disappointment. So it'll be an interesting future. What's ahead for them? I think they've probably worked quite well and are looking at filling the key positions that they've lost players in throughout the course of this year. So to be able to get with that and stick to it, I think that they can continue to do well. If there's anything that's the greatest challenge, it was the confidence. And there were a couple of times where I was quite surprised to see the games in Townsville where confidence really did appear to be quite an issue for the Cowboys, and that's never been a problem for them. They've always gone out there quite inspired and looking to produce their best whilst playing at home in front of their hometown fans. So perhaps times will change.
I think Nanai, who had a flat year, was a bit busted up. But if he's fit and healthy, when was the last time you see him score a try for kick? Which it was like every week. So he obviously needs to have a rest and get himself fit for next year.
Helam Lukely had a erupted year as well too, the other back row, so he'll be better for the run. They actually only lost twice in the past 12 weeks. Last 12 weeks of the season, so it was quite an admirable finish.
Well, I remember you and I were sitting at the desk pretty much every week, Adam, talking about the Cowboys. We were having a little whinge about it, what's gone wrong, where are they going? But to see the way that they came home, I think probably added not just confidence but inspiration to the team. It was an excellent finish to the season, what proved to be a disappointing start.
Yeah, one of those two losses in the last 12 weeks was actually to the Broncos. The Broncos, their last one, they finished the season 12th. Hugely disappointing after making the grand final last year and having one hand on the premiership. I'm going to give them a D, but I'm going to rate their finals chances high for next year. I'm going to say 60% because it was such a big learning curve and almost a wake-up call for a lot of players this year.
Yeah, I think you're predicting a reaction or a response, which I am too. I'm 60% playing finals, and being involved with the club, I felt like a D-. It was tough, and I think just the way some of those losses at the back end of the year was really hard to watch. So, I think once they knew the season was gone, I think the effort sort of dropped off a bit, or if they were playing a team and the score got too far away, it was they'd lost hope. So it was really hard to watch, but I think we'll get a reaction and a response from them next year.
And the reaction, I'm going to get an identical one to yours, Lockie. I had it down as a D-. Very disappointed for the players, and I think, Adam, the thing, for you and I, we. Being at virtually every training session, going out there, you could see what they were hoping to achieve, what they were willing to put in every training session, do it tough, train hard, put in the extra efforts to try and get back in the winners list with a smile upon their face. But there were things that went wrong. The loss of their key playmaker probably wasn't something that they were able to deal with in a positive manner. But they've never stayed down for the count in the Broncos. They've always got back to their feet, and I expect that'll be the case in the next season. So I'll probably have a couple of different things that we haven't heard about yet, but they've become one of those sides that everybody will be rating the same way. That they'll be back. It's just a matter of time, and how good are they going to be?
And we talked about the spine earlier and how that brings consistency if you've got the same players there every week. But Reece was in and out. Reynolds obviously out for a big, bit of time, and then Ezra at the back end. So they lacked continuity, and through those injuries. But I think most players would put, their hand on their chest and say, yeah, man, we can do a lot better than that.
Yeah.
Fascinating who wins their Player of the Year award, because they still haven't had their awards tonight. It's after the NRL Grand Final this year. Who wins the Broncos Player of the Year? Because I can see it just being split because of injuries, unavailability, origin of like, who wins that? I know Carrigan was excellent.
I was going to say Carrigan.
Yeah.
Carrigan's probably the most consistent. You know, Reynolds had good games but missed a big chunk of the season. You know, I thought Staggs had a pretty good year overall.
I probably think Carrigan was the most consistent, and he was there for the majority of the seasons.
Yeah.
By the length of the straight, Pat Carrigan, and I
Yeah.
don't mean to be disrespectful to the other players in the team. They were all out giving their best, trying to make sure that they avoided a loss or the embarrassment of not their best game. But Pat was one of those blokes that just put up every week. Wonderful player. Must be a real thrill to go out and play alongside him each and every week. You know that while you've got him standing there, that you've got great support all the way around you.
That'll be the first time in 5 years Payne Haas hasn't won it. He's dominated that Paul Morgan medal.
Yeah, well, again, he had injuries this year too, so some of those key players, in and out, it had a definite impact. And once they lost a bit of confidence at the back end of the year, it's been a long year for them. So I'm sure they get a rest and come back and get into it.
Yeah.
But this year could still end on a positive note for the Broncos. Minor premiers in the NRLW competition. They have a home final this week at the old East Tigers ground at Cooperoo there, Langlands Park. Totally Workwear Stadium, I think it's called now.
I'll be there. So
against the Sharkies, So you'll see that game live and free on 9. So fingers crossed the Broncos win and they go into the grand final, which you'll catch live and free on Channel 9's Wide World of Sports. Thanks for joining us this season. We'll be back next year for Queenslander.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie and the Own.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.